Prepare yourself for a family drama so gripping you won't be able to look away. Imagine discovering your husband's betrayal in three devastating steps: a secret message, a hidden affair, and a plan to take his lover to your family beach house, the place where your happiest memories were made. Now picture me, waiting there with her fiancé, ready to expose their lies in a confrontation that will leave you speechless. I'm Ava Bennett, and in this story, I'll take you through three powerful stages: the heartbreak that shattered my world, the plan that gave me my strength, and a finale so shocking it'll change everything. Stay until the end to see how I turned their romantic escape into their worst nightmare. You won't believe the twist that's coming. Let's dive in. Act 1. The Betrayal That Broke Me. I'm Ava Bennett, 32 years old, living in Portland, Oregon. By day, I'm a marketing director at a sustainable fashion startup, crafting campaigns that align with my passion for a better world. By night, I was Noah's wife. Or at least I thought I was. Noah and I had been together for 9 years, married for 5. We met at a music festival in college, dancing under a sky full of stars to an indie band we both adored. He spun me around, his laughter echoing over the music, and in that moment, I knew I'd found my forever. We were the couple everyone envied, always laughing, always dreaming, always promising each other a lifetime of love. But sometimes, forever comes with a catch you never see coming. It was a chilly Monday morning in May 2025, just days before our annual trip to our family beach house in Cannon Beach. That beach house was our sanctuary, a little whitewashed cottage with creaky floors, a weathered porch, and a view of the Pacific that stole my breath every time I stepped outside. It was where Noah proposed, down on one knee with the waves crashing behind him, his hazel eyes shining with a promise I believed in. It was where we spent every summer with our families, filling the house with laughter and the smell of grilled fish. And it was where we grieved the loss of our first baby 2 years ago, holding each other through the darkest nights. I thought nothing could taint those memories. I was wrong. I woke up earlier than Noah, as usual, to make breakfast. The kitchen was bathed in soft morning light, the smell of coffee filling the air as I moved through my routine. Noah's phone was on the counter, and it buzzed with a new message. I glanced at it, thinking it might be his sister, who was always texting about our beach trip plans. The preview stopped me cold. So excited for the beach house this weekend, babe. Just us and the waves. The name above the message was Lydia. My stomach dropped like a stone sinking into the ocean. Noah didn't know a Lydia, and I certainly hadn't invited anyone to our beach house. I stood there, frozen, the coffee pot trembling in my hand. The warmth of the kitchen suddenly felt like ice against my skin. My mind raced, replaying the last few months. Noah had been distant lately, working late at his architecture firm, taking his phone into the bathroom, something he never used to do. His laptop had a new password, and his eyes, those warm hazel eyes that used to light up when he saw me, had started looking right through me like I was a stranger in our own home. I'd told myself I was being paranoid, that every marriage has its rough patches. But that message wasn't a rough patch. It was a betrayal. I didn't confront him right away. When Noah came downstairs, he smiled at me like nothing was wrong. "Morning, love," he said, kissing my forehead. His touch as familiar as ever, but now laced with a lie I couldn't unsee. "I've got a last-minute client meeting in Seattle this weekend, so I'll have to miss our beach house trip. We'll go next weekend, okay?" I nodded, my throat tight, forcing a smile that felt like it might crack my face. "Okay," I said, my voice hollow. "Be safe." But as he grabbed his briefcase and headed out the door, I knew something had changed. Noah's smile didn't reach his eyes anymore, and I couldn't ignore the truth staring me in the face. That night, after Noah fell asleep, I sat on the edge of our bed, watching his chest rise and fall in the dim moonlight. I felt a pang of guilt, but I needed the truth. I gently lifted his hand, using his thumb to unlock his phone. What I found was a secret life I never knew existed. Lydia, a graphic designer at Noah's firm, had been his lover for 8 months. Their messages were a gut punch. Detailed plans for their weekend at our beach house, complete with photos of Lydia in a red bikini captioned, "Can't wait for you to see this in person." There were flirty exchanges, inside jokes, and promises of a weekend filled with romance. Each message was a dagger, slicing through the memories of our life together, leaving me bleeding on the inside. I sat there in the dark, scrolling through their conversations, my tears falling silently onto the screen. I remembered the nights I'd stayed up late working, thinking Noah was doing the same, only to realize now that he'd been with her. I remembered the mornings I'd made him coffee, the evenings we'd spent planning our future, the way he'd held me after our miscarriage, whispering that we'd get through it together. All of it felt like a lie now, a beautifully crafted illusion that had just shattered into a million pieces. But one message gave me a glimmer of hope, not for my marriage, but for justice. Lydia had written, "My fiancé Caleb is out of town for a conference, so we've got the whole weekend to ourselves." Lydia had a fiancé. I searched for Caleb online, my fingers trembling as I typed. Within minutes, I found him. Caleb Harper, a 34-year-old software engineer based in Eugene. His LinkedIn profile showed a man with a kind smile, but his eyes held the same exhaustion I saw in my own reflection. It was the look of someone who'd been betrayed, someone who'd been carrying a weight they didn't deserve. I took a deep breath and sent Caleb a message. "Hi, Caleb. This is Ava Bennett. I believe my husband Noah and your fiancée Lydia are having an affair. They're planning a weekend at my family beach house in Cannon Beach. I have proof if you'd like to see it. Can we talk?" My heart pounded as I hit send, but I knew I couldn't face this alone. 3 hours later, my phone rang. Caleb's voice was deep, steady, but I could hear the pain beneath it. "Is this real?" he asked, his words heavy with disbelief. "I'm so sorry, but yes," I replied, my throat dry. "I have texts, photos, everything. They're going to my beach house this weekend. I want to confront them there. Together. Are you in?" There was a long pause, then Caleb said, "Yes, I'm in." Hey, if you're hooked on this story of betrayal and revenge, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to Shocking Family Drama Stories. We've got more drama coming your way, and you won't want to miss what's next. Act 2. The Plan That Gave Me Strength. We agreed to meet on Friday evening at a small cafe in Astoria, a halfway point between Portland and Eugene. I arrived early, sitting in a corner booth with a cup of tea I couldn't bring myself to drink, my nerves buzzing like a live wire. When Caleb walked in, I recognized him immediately. Tall, with dark hair and a quiet intensity that matched the storm in my chest. He sat down across from me, his eyes searching mine for a moment before I slid my phone across the table. I opened the message thread between Noah and Lydia, letting him see the truth for himself. His jaw tightened as he scrolled, his knuckles whitening around the phone, but he didn't break down. "I suspected something," he said softly, his voice raw. "Lydia's been distant for months. She'd pull away when I tried to talk about our wedding, always saying she was stressed. I thought it was cold feet. Now I know better." We sat there for an hour, two strangers bound by betrayal, piecing together the lies that had unraveled our lives. Caleb told me about the late nights Lydia claimed to be working, the weekends she'd spend visiting friends, and the way she'd started hiding her phone. I shared how Noah had changed. His new passwords, his distant gaze, the way he'd stopped wearing his wedding ring, claiming it was uncomfortable at work. We were mirrors of each other's pain, reflecting the same hurt, the same betrayal, the same determination to take back what was ours. We planned our confrontation with precision, each step a lifeline pulling me out of the despair that had consumed me. Caleb had a spare key to the beach house. He'd helped us install a new lock last summer when he and Lydia visited, a memory that now felt like a cruel irony. Noah didn't know Caleb still had the key, and Lydia thought Caleb was at a conference in San Francisco. "Let's get there first," I said, my voice steady with newfound resolve. "No yelling, no chaos. We'll just be there when they arrive, with the truth laid out for them to see. Caleb nodded, his eyes hard with determination. I want them to feel what we felt, he said. The shock, the betrayal, all of it. We arrived at the beach house on Saturday morning, hours before Noah and Lydia were set to arrive at 6 p.m. The air was crisp, the ocean waves crashing in the distance, but inside, my heart was a storm. The beach house looked just as I remembered. Whitewashed walls, a driftwood coffee table, and the old rocking chair where Noah and I used to sit, watching the sunset with our arms around each other. I could almost hear the echoes of our laughter, the whispered promises we'd made in the moonlight. But now, those memories felt tainted, poisoned by the betrayal I'd uncovered. The sunlight streaming through the windows cast long shadows across the hardwood floor, mirroring the darkness I felt inside. Caleb and I set the stage in 3 deliberate steps: preparation, anticipation, and atmosphere. First, we placed 2 chairs in the living room facing the front door, so Noah and Lydia would see us the moment they walked in, their escape cut short by the reality of their lies. Second, I set out a bottle of Noah's favorite Merlot and 4 glasses, one for each of us, building the tension of what was to come. The clink of glass on wood, a quiet promise of confrontation. Third, Caleb printed out copies of the messages and photos, placing them in a folder on the table, creating an atmosphere of undeniable truth that would hit them like a tidal wave. We adjusted the lights to a soft glow, enough to see their faces clearly, but not so bright as to feel confrontational, the amber light casting a warm yet eerie glow over the room. How do you think they'll react? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper as I adjusted the last glass, my hands trembling slightly. Caleb shrugged, his expression unreadable. Lydia will cry. She always does when she's caught, he said. Noah, I don't know, but they won't be ready for this. They think they're untouchable, that they've gotten away with it. They're wrong. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of our plan settling over us like a heavy fog. I thought about the last time I'd been here with Noah, how we'd danced on the porch under the stars, his arms around me as he whispered promises of forever. Now, I was here to break those promises apart, to shatter the illusion he'd built around us. The afternoon passed slowly, each tick of the clock amplifying the tension in the air. We talked to pass the time, not just about the betrayal, but about ourselves. 3 layers of connection that made the weight bearable. First, I shared the pain of my miscarriage, which happened right here at the beach house. I told Caleb how I'd collapsed on the kitchen floor, Noah holding me as we cried, promising we'd get through it together. Second, Caleb opened up about his dreams, how he and Lydia had planned to travel the world after their wedding, a dream that now felt like a cruel joke. Third, we found common ground in our shared betrayal, a bond that gave us strength as the clock ticked closer to 6 p.m. I learned that Caleb loved hiking, that he'd always wanted to climb Mount Hood, and I shared my dream of opening a sustainable fashion boutique, something Noah had dismissed as impractical. In those hours, we became more than just allies. We became friends, united by a shared wound. We're getting to the heart of this gripping drama. If you're loving the suspense, hit that like button and subscribe to Shocking Family Drama Stories. The confrontation is about to explode. You won't want to miss it. The tension in the air grew thick, the sound of the waves outside a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside. At 5:58 p.m., we heard tires crunching on the gravel driveway, the sound cutting through the silence like a knife. Caleb looked at me, his eyes steady, and I nodded, my heart pounding in my chest. A moment later, the door opened. Lydia walked in first, her laughter ringing through the house like a mockery of the joy this place once held. Her arm was linked with Noah's, and she was wearing the red bikini top under a sheer cover-up, just like in the photo. Noah followed, carrying a duffel bag and a bottle of champagne, a wide grin on his face, until his eyes met mine, and that grin vanished like smoke in the wind. Act 3. The confrontation that changed everything. The champagne bottle slipped from Noah's hand, shattering on the hardwood floor in three distinct sounds: the crash of glass, the roll of the bottle, and the silence that followed, heavy and suffocating. The smell of alcohol filled the air as Lydia's laughter turned to a sharp gasp. Her eyes darted between me and Caleb, her face paling as if she'd seen a ghost. Noah froze, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water, his hazel eyes wide with shock. "Welcome to your romantic getaway," I said, my voice calm but sharp, cutting through the tension like a blade. "We've set the table for you in three ways: wine, glasses, and the truth." Noah's face turned red, a flush creeping up his neck as he struggled to find words. "Ava, what are you doing here?" he stammered, his voice cracking. "I could ask you the same thing," I said, tilting my head, my gaze unwavering. "You said you had a client meeting in Seattle, but it looks like your meeting is standing right next to you, wearing a bikini I've already seen in your phone." Caleb stood, his voice icy as he turned to Lydia. "And you, Lydia, you told me you were visiting your sister in Salem. Funny how you ended up here with Ava's husband, laughing like you don't have a care in the world." Lydia's hands flew to her mouth, tears welling in her eyes as the reality of her situation crashed over her. "Caleb, I can explain," she whispered, her voice trembling, her composure crumbling. "Don't," Caleb said, his tone as cold as the ocean outside. "I've seen the messages, the photos. I know exactly what you've been doing for the last 8 months. You can't explain this away." I picked up the folder from the table and slid it toward Noah, my movements deliberate, my eyes never leaving his. "You should take a look, too," I said. 3 pieces of evidence: call logs, credit card statements, and a voice message from your assistant confirming you had no meetings in Seattle. You were careful, Noah, but not careful enough. Noah grabbed the folder, his hands shaking as he flipped through the pages, his eyes scanning the proof of his betrayal. "You spied on me?" he snapped, his voice rising, a mix of anger and panic. "I verified the truth," I said, my voice steady, my gaze unflinching. "Because I've been suspicious for too long and you've been lying for even longer. I deserve to know, Noah. After everything we've been through, I deserved the truth." Lydia collapsed into a chair, her sobs echoing through the room, her hands covering her face as if she could hide from the consequences of her actions. I turned to Noah, my heart pounding but my resolve unshaken. "Do you remember what this place meant to me?" I asked, my voice low but firm. 3 moments we shared here. Our proposal, when you promised me forever with the waves as our witness. Our summers with family, filling this house with laughter. And the night I lost our baby, right here on this floor, when you held me and swore we'd get through it together. If the love you claim to have for me includes bringing another woman to the place where I grieved our child, then I don't want it. I don't want any part of it." The room fell silent, the only sound Lydia's muffled sobs and the distant crash of waves against the shore. Caleb spoke next, his voice low and measured, but the pain in his words was unmistakable. "Lydia, you told me you wanted to start a family," he said, his eyes fixed on her. "You'd talk about baby names, about the kind of parents we'd be. But while I was planning our wedding, you were planning this. How long were you going to keep lying to me? To yourself?" Lydia looked up, her eyes red and swollen, her voice barely audible. "I don't know," she whispered, her words choked with tears. "I got caught up. I was scared of committing, scared of failing. It wasn't supposed to be like this." We're getting close to the explosive finale. If you're on the edge of your seat, make sure to like and subscribe to Shocking Family Drama Stories. The best is yet to come. I pulled out a second folder and placed it on the table, my movements slow and deliberate. "Noah, 3 financial truths you hid from me," I said, my voice steady. "First, I've been paying the mortgage on this beach house for the last 3 years. You stopped contributing after the first year, right around the time you started seeing her. Second, you borrowed $15,000 from our joint account for a work project. It went to a luxury watch for Lydia, a watch you claimed was a family heirloom. Third, I've separated our finances. This house is in my name now, and I'm done carrying the weight of your lies. Lydia's head snapped up, her eyes wide with shock as she turned to Noah. A watch? She said, her voice trembling with a mix of betrayal and disbelief. You told me that was a family heirloom. You said it meant something. Noah's face twisted in panic, his charm evaporating under the weight of his own deception. It's not what you think, he said quickly, his words stumbling over each other. I can explain. Caleb crossed his arms, his voice cutting through Noah's excuses. Sounds like you've been lying to both of them, he said, his tone dripping with disdain. You're not just a cheater, Noah, you're a fraud. The air in the room was electric, every word a spark threatening to ignite the tension into a full-blown fire. I looked at Noah, the man I'd loved for nearly a decade, and felt a clarity I hadn't known I needed. But just as I thought the confrontation was winding down, Lydia spoke again, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and shame. There's something else, she said, looking at Caleb, her hands clutching the edge of the chair. I'm pregnant. The room went still in 3 distinct beats. The gasp that escaped my lips, the silence that followed, and the ticking of the clock on the wall, each second slicing through the air like a blade. Noah's head snapped up, his eyes wide with shock. What? He said, his voice hoarse, his hands gripping the table. Are you serious? Lydia nodded, tears streaming down her face as she looked at Caleb, her voice barely above a whisper. I found out last week. I was going to tell you this weekend, Noah, but it's not yours. Caleb and we were together a month ago. I'm sure it's his. Caleb's face went pale, his hands clenching into fists at his sides, his voice barely controlled. You're pregnant with my child, he said slowly, each word heavy with betrayal. And you were here with him? In this house, planning a getaway while carrying my baby? Lydia sobbed harder, her hands covering her face as she broke down completely. I didn't know what to do, she said, her words muffled by her tears. I was scared, Caleb. I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. I looked at Noah, who was staring at Lydia like he'd been slapped, his face a mixture of shock, humiliation, and something else. Something that looked like the shattering of his carefully constructed facade. For the first time, I saw the man I'd loved for what he truly was. A liar, a coward, a fraud who'd built his happiness on the ruins of mine. I took a deep breath and stood, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside me. I think we've all heard enough, I said, my eyes locked on Noah. Noah, I've said what I needed to say. Here are 3 things for you to take away. First, the divorce papers are in this folder. Sign them or we go to court, but I'm not changing my mind. Second, I'm selling the beach house. I don't need a place filled with ghosts of a life that was never real. Third, we're done. I'm done. I turned to Caleb, who was still staring at Lydia, his face a mask of pain and confusion. I'm going to step outside, I said. I need some air. He nodded, his voice quiet. I'll join you, he said. I need to process this. We're almost at the end of this incredible journey. If you've loved this story, hit that like button and subscribe to Shocking Family Drama Stories. The final moments will leave you inspired. We stepped out onto the deck, the cool ocean breeze a stark contrast to the suffocating heaviness inside. The sun had set, and the stars were beginning to peek through the sky, casting a soft glow over the water. Caleb leaned against the railing, staring out at the horizon, his hands gripping the wood so tightly his knuckles turned white. A baby, he said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. I didn't see that coming. I don't even know where to start. I nodded, the sound of the waves a soothing rhythm against the chaos of the evening. None of us did, I said. What are you going to do? He sighed, his shoulders slumping as the weight of it all settled over him. I don't know, he said. I can't forgive her. Not after this. But if that's my child, I'll be there. The baby doesn't deserve to suffer for her mistakes. I'll figure out how to be a father, even if I can't be her partner. We stood in silence for a while, the waves crashing against the shore, their rhythm a reminder that life goes on, even after the worst storms. I thought about the life I'd built with Noah, the dreams we'd shared, the promises we'd made. I thought about the miscarriage, the way he'd held me in this very house, whispering that we'd get through it together. I thought about the woman I'd been then, so trusting, so willing to believe in him, even when the signs were there. I wasn't that woman anymore. I couldn't be. We went back inside after about 20 minutes, the air inside still thick with tension. Noah was sitting at the table, the divorce papers in front of him, a pen in his hand, his face pale and drawn. Lydia was on the couch, her face buried in her hands, her sobs quieter now, but no less heartbreaking. Noah looked up at me, his eyes red and glistening with unshed tears. "I'm sorry, Ava," he said, his voice breaking, the words sounding genuine for the first time. "I never meant to hurt you like this. I got caught up and I made a mess of everything." I nodded, my heart aching but my resolve firm. "I believe you're sorry," I said. "But sorry doesn't fix this. It doesn't erase the lies, the betrayal, the way you broke every promise we made. Sign the papers, Noah. Let's both move on." He hesitated for a moment, his hand hovering over the page, then signed each page, his movement slow and deliberate, as if he were signing away the last piece of the man he used to be. Lydia looked up at Caleb, her voice barely audible through her tears. "I'll understand if you never want to see me again," she said, her hands trembling. "But if you want to be part of the baby's life, I won't stop you. I owe you that much." Caleb nodded slowly, his face still pale, his voice steady but heavy. "I'll need time," he said, "but I'll be there for the baby. That's all I can promise right now." Caleb and I left the beach house around 9 p.m., leaving Noah and Lydia to deal with the wreckage of their lies. The night air was cool against my skin as we walked to our cars, the sound of the waves a quiet farewell to a chapter I was ready to close. Caleb turned to me, his expression softer now, the sharp edges of his pain beginning to dull. "There's a diner a few miles down the road," he said, a small smile tugging at his lips. "They've got great pie, best blueberry in the county. Want to grab a slice before we head back?" I smiled, a real smile that felt like a small victory in the midst of so much loss. "Yeah," I said, my voice lighter than it had been in days. "I'd like that." We sat in the diner, sharing a slice of blueberry pie under the warm glow of a neon sign, the tart sweetness a small comfort after the bitterness of the evening. We talked about everything but the betrayal. 3 small steps toward healing: a shared dessert, a quiet conversation, and a new friendship born from shared pain. I told Caleb about my dream of opening a sustainable fashion boutique, how I'd always wanted to create something meaningful, something that was mine. He shared his love for hiking, how he'd always wanted to climb Mount Hood, to stand at the summit and feel the world fall away. In that moment, we weren't just 2 people who'd been betrayed. We were 2 people finding a way forward, together. We're at the end of this incredible journey. If you've loved this story, hit that like button and subscribe to Shocking Family Drama Stories. The final moments will leave you inspired. 6 months later, I stood on the porch of my new apartment in Astoria, a small coastal town not far from Cannon Beach. The divorce had been finalized in record time. Noah didn't fight it, especially after his firm demoted him when word of his affair got out. I sold the beach house, using the money to start my sustainable fashion boutique, a dream Noah had dismissed as impractical, but was now my reality. The boutique was small but thriving, each sale a step toward the life I'd always wanted, a life where I was enough, just as I was. Lydia gave birth to a healthy boy, and Caleb stepped up as a father. He texted me a photo of the baby, a tiny hand wrapped around his finger with the caption, "Liam," Emotions are a mess, but I'm trying. I don't know if he and Lydia reconciled, but I know Caleb's doing his best to be a good dad, to give his son the love he deserves. As for Noah, I heard through a mutual friend that he moved to Seattle, taking a lower paying job at a smaller firm. He's a shadow of the man I once loved, his charm and confidence stripped away by the consequences of his choices. I don't feel sorry for him. He made his choices, and now he's living with them. I've changed too, in three profound ways that have reshaped my life. First, I'm no longer the woman who stayed silent, who ignored the red flags because I was scared of losing my marriage. I've learned to trust my instincts, to speak my truth, even when it's hard. Second, I work on my own terms now, running my boutique and taking weekends to hike along the coast. The ocean air, a reminder of the freedom I've found. Third, I found peace. A quiet, steady peace that comes from knowing I'm enough, just as I am, without needing anyone else to validate me. Caleb and I still keep in touch. Not often, but enough to know we're both okay. Sometimes it's a quick happy holidays text. Sometimes a photo of a sunrise on Mount Hood with the caption, "Thought you'd like this." We don't need more than that. We walked through the darkest night of our lives together, and that's a bond that doesn't need words. One evening, as I sat on my porch with a glass of wine, watching the waves crash in the distance under a sky painted with the colors of dusk, I realized something in three clear truths. I was free from the lies that had once held me captive, free from the pain that had once consumed me, and free to be the woman I'd always wanted to be, unapologetically myself. Noah had been a chapter in my life, a long and painful one, but he wasn't the whole story. I'd survived the betrayal, and I'd come out stronger on the other side, my heart no longer heavy with the weight of his deception. My story isn't a tragedy. It's a rebirth in three stages: the heartbreak that broke me, the confrontation that empowered me, and the peace that healed me. If someone asked me now, "Ava, do you regret anything?" I'd say without hesitation, no. Because sometimes the people who hurt us the most are the ones who teach us how to stand up, walk away, and rebuild. They show us our own strength, our own resilience, our own worth. I'm grateful I had the courage to do just that, to choose myself when it mattered most. What do you think of my journey? Would you have confronted Noah and Lydia like I did? Or would you have walked away sooner? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to follow Shocking Family Drama Stories for more tales of love, betrayal, and redemption. We've got more stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Stories of heartbreak and triumph, of betrayal and healing, of finding light in the darkest moments. Wow, what a journey. If you love this story, hit that like button and subscribe to Shocking Family Drama Stories. We've got more epic dramas coming your way. See you in the next one.